I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer June 4th, 2004.
It's December 12th, 2008.
October 14th, 2006.
My name is Peter English, and I went to emergency. That was in early June. It took me a couple days. Well, I went to emergency, a couple days, got the appointment. Doctor put me to sleep for a half hour, and when I woke up, he said, I thought I would find gallstones. Instead, I have found a tumor. I felt bombarded by emotions. It's a kaleidoscope of feelings. On one hand, I was relieved to have a diagnosis. It struck me as the first diagnosis that really meant anything. So there was a fire at a certain place in my belly, and we could go to work on that rather than not know what's going on. Of course, the other contrary view was, my goodness, this is awful. And so I saw that I had a management issue to help my son, help my wife understand somehow we're going to get through this. Whatever it is, we're going to get through it.
My name is Stu Jed. January 7th of 2009, I went into the hospital for a Whipple procedure. Supposed to be an 8 to 12 hour surgery. In fact, that was done in about 5.5 to 6. And the surgeon came out and told my wife, Ginny, and then me, that she had found metastasis lesions on my liver. So she could not do the Whipple. And it was at that time, in January of '07, that I realized I really did have cancer. We all know the statistics, but I've always believed that there was a bell-shaped curve in this disease. And there are people over here that don't make it, and there are people over here that make it. And I was going to make it. I was going to be part of that. And that's how I've approached the whole thing from the beginning.
When I was in there having the ultrasound, they said, wait a second, I could tell something was off. And they called other people in there and they were telling me drink water and to swallow, and I thought, geez, something's wrong. And then they said, yeah, there's a mass on your pancreas. And I didn't even know at that point that you could have pancreatic cancer. And we were really naive. We didn't know what it could mean. I was terrified. I had young children that were 8, 12 and 14 at the time, and I just felt like I have to be here. There's nothing I have to be here.
Patients will sometimes come to me with sheets of paper that have statistics on them, and they want to know whether these statistics apply to them. Sometimes they've been told by an oncologist that there's no hope because they have pancreatic cancer and they're going to die. And I tell them that statistics are old news. That is yesterday's data. In fact, that is 5 years ago data. The regimens we use now, the treatments we use now, are evolving every few months. And we know that our current patients are getting treatments that are far better than what we ever used in the past, and they're living longer.
I do a lot of lobbying for pancreatic cancer. And one of the things I go in and say is, I'm a pancreatic cancer survivor. And I wear this button with great pride that I made it this far. There are more and more of us out there. I recently went to a meeting back in Washington, which was the year before. There was about 30 of us there. This time there were 80. So it's growing.
I had doctors, Dr. Kirkwood. She gave me hope. We didn't discuss statistics. I recall asking her, can I live? And she said, yes, you can. And so from that, I had hope. And I think everybody needs hope. And, the statistics, I would sometimes reiterate them to my husband. I'd say, oh no, but there are these statistics. He'd say, you know what, you're not a statistic, you're a person.
Understand the statistics, but that doesn't mean you're going to die, you're going to live, whatever the case is. Ultimately, you're going to make the decision as to whether or not there's more you want to do with life, more you want to do in life. I understand how hard it is. I want to tell you, there's a lot that you can do to take care of yourself. It is really worth it. Give it every ounce that you possibly can.
It is so important for patients to at least get an expert evaluation at an NCI-designated cancer center because we're at the forefront of what's being done. We know what our own results are before they're published. And so it's possible for us to determine whether somebody would benefit from one of our newer protocols, for example, before that information is disseminated to the community.
I believe firmly that community hospitals are wonderful for many things. But in any circumstance that is serious, a very serious cardiac problem, very serious cancer problem, if you can get to a hospital that is also a research center that deals with a lot of patients, your chances of survival go up exponentially. I would not in the future ever consider, if my cancer came back, to not going to a research hospital.
Get yourself to a National Cancer Institute center. Get with someone that handles this disease and a system that you can get into. For me, the system worked. Besides seeing a pancreatic surgeon and seeing an oncologist that specializes in pancreatic care, I also saw, as I said, the psychologist, the nutritionist, anybody. But the system all made that available to me. And the thing is, I used it. You don't have to do this thing alone.
Well, one thing that we learned, and this was huge, we lived in a very small, we come from a very small town. And somehow we connected up with UCSF, and I don't know how that really happened. And we came upon a surgeon who was totally experienced in pancreatic cancer. And you know, I'm thankful that I lived in a small town so that it almost forced me to a big area like UCSF. And I guess my biggest advice to somebody would be to find a high volume center, maybe a teaching hospital that does this routinely, and they know all of the ins and outs, and the nursing staff, and everybody kind of knows what can come about, so that everybody knows how to treat the patient as a person.
You have the opportunity now to be, you know, the designer of the next months in your life. People will give you a break. They're not going to dump the work on you anymore. And so take that opportunity to figure out what brings joy. And who knows, maybe what brings joy to your life brings cure to your life.
What works for one person might not work for another, but you got to keep searching for what works for you personally.
My sister gave me a ring that says hope, love, faith. And every time I would think I have to hope I'm okay, I would just turn it on my finger to faith. I have to have faith that I'm going to be okay.
The more you know about your body, the more you're going to be able to do to help the doctors get rid of what's wrong and get it right. There is so much to live for.
Survival is possible. I'm here, the other people you're talking to are here. There are a whole bunch of us around the country that are survivors, and there is no reason that you, as a newly diagnosed pancreatic patient, can't be a survivor also.
It's a quality that I know when I see it. I see them in the office and they tell me I'm going to be one of those survivors, and I can't tell you how much that impacts on their likelihood of being one of those survivors, far more than any single lab value, any single radiology test.
So many times, you know, people would say, you know, yeah, I picture you well, and then you have to think of yourself as well and picture each cell in your body repairing itself.
Believe in the restorative powers that all animals, including ourselves, have.
That statement, laughter is the best medicine, I think there's a lot more science to that than we ever knew.
You do whatever you got to do to get through this thing, because if anything, what I've learned is that pancreatic cancer is a diagnosis. It's not necessarily a death sentence.
There's certainly a relationship that we see between the people who manage to fill their day-to-day life with those moments of quiet and those moments that have spontaneous joy. And those are often the patients who live the longest.